Bonjour à tous and welcome to this lesson on the French negative aucun, meaning none or not any. Now you definitely need to make sure that you're familiar with the basics of negatives before you watch this video. A, because there are some other negative words that are used far more often, like pas, jamais, rien and plus, but also because aucun works very slightly differently to all of those. So make sure you have a good grasp on those before you learn this one. If you already do, then let's have a look at how this one works. Now the first thing you'll probably notice is that this word has two forms, aucun and aucune, and as I'm sure you can imagine, aucun is the masculine form and aucune is the feminine form, and this changes depending on the noun that follows. So let's have a look at some example sentences as usual. Now structurally, at least in simple tenses, aucun is very much like the simple negatives that we've already seen. We have ne, verb and aucun. We just need to make sure that aucun agrees with the following noun. So for example, il a un problème is he has a problem. The opposite of that, il n'a aucun problème, he has no problems. And we're using aucun here because problème is masculine. If, though, we said j'ai une idée, I have an idea, because idée is feminine, the opposite would be je n'ai aucune idée, I have no idea. So that shouldn't be too difficult. Like I said, structurally it's very much the same as other negatives with simple tenses, but just to make sure that aucun or aucune agrees with the following noun. It's slightly different though when we're using the passé composé or other compound tenses. Take for example, tu as fait des progrès, that means you have made progress. Now according to the rule that we already have, the negative form of this would be tu n'as aucun fait des progrès, but that doesn't make any sense. Remember that aucun has to agree with the noun that follows it, and fait is not a noun, so instead we need to put it before the nearest noun, and that is progrès. So instead we'll say tu n'as fait aucun progrès. You have made no progress. So remember that if in your sentence aucun is not followed by a noun, it's probably in the wrong place. Let's have a look at another example. Il a fait un grand effort. He made a big effort. Il n'a fait aucun effort. He made no effort. So once again, we're not going to say il n'a aucun fait because fait is a verb. So instead we have to put aucun before the noun that follows. Now a lot of people wonder what is the difference between aucun and pas de, since both express a lack of something. Take for example, je n'ai pas de stylo. We could translate this as I don't have a pen, right? But you could also say je n'ai aucun stylo, which I suppose is I have no pens. And people wonder, how do I know when to use which one? My answer to you is have a look at the English. If someone says to you, do you have a pen? And you don't, which one would you say? I don't have a pen, or I have no pens? I imagine some of you say I don't have a pen and others say I have no pens. You could reasonably respond with either one of them. And the same goes for French. Je n'ai pas de stylo and je n'ai aucun stylo, in most cases, are pretty much the same. If someone says to you, est-ce que tu as un stylo? You can say, désolé, je n'ai pas de stylo, or désolé, je n'ai aucun stylo. However, I guess there is a very slight difference in that aucun really emphasizes the complete and utter lack of pen, whereas je n'ai pas de stylo is not quite as strong. And I think this difference is much clearer in the sentences je n'ai pas d'idée, which is I don't have any ideas, and je n'ai aucune idée, which is more like I have no idea. Aucune here is far more emphatic and really emphasizes the fact that you have no idea whatsoever. So if you want a difference, pas de is just not quite as strong as aucun, but in most cases both are fine. Finally, as with a lot of these negatives, you can start a sentence with aucun, and just like the others, it needs to be followed by ne. Take for example, tous mes amis sont là, that is, all of my friends are here. If we wanted to say none of my friends are here, we would say aucun de mes amis n'est là. Notice three things. Number one, we have aucun de for none of. Number 2, we have the ne just before the verb, just as we do with any other negative that is structured in this way. And number 3, notice that the verb être is singular. Now in English, strictly speaking, the verb should be singular as well. We should say none of my friends is here. But in English, we're very, very tolerant of getting the number wrong. And because we have the plural friends, we quite like to hear are after it. In French, the rule is much clearer. Because aucun is 0, it takes a singular verb all of the time. You couldn't say aucun de mes amis ne sont là. It just wouldn't work. Another example, les victimes ont survécu, that is, the victims survived. The opposite of that, aucune victime n'a survécu, that would be no victim survived. Of course, you could say none of the victims survived, in which case it would be aucune des victimes n'a survécu. But in this case, we're just saying no victim survived, so we don't need the de. Aucune victime n'a survécu. Aucune, because victime, regardless of the gender of the person, is always feminine. So there we go, that's another negative for you in French. I understand this one is a little bit fiddly, so if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. As always, spend some time with it, be creative, make some sentences, and really get to know it rather than just moving straight on to the next one. Thank you very much for watching, and à bientôt!